Welcome back to another episode of the Brilliant Resilient Experience.
My dear friend, where have you been? Where have you gone? Where did you win? Someone there, are you listening? Is it too late? My dear friend.
If you find other people that have big goals, then you won't feel as crazy. You'll be motivated. Today, we have a very special guest. We've got an amateur MMA fighter and kickboxer joining us today. He is based out of St. Louis, Missouri, and he trains at Finney's MMA. And he has an upcoming fight on May 4th in Southern Indiana Combat Production. So I'm very excited to talk to him about his journey in martial arts. So let's go ahead and welcome Jose DeAvila-Diaz.
I want to thank everybody, that's supported me throughout my fighting career. Thanks to Jesse Finney. I want to thank huge thanks to my wife and kids, because without her, I wouldn't be able to train. So I give her a lot of props for holding down the fort while I'm gone.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know you. I saw that you have, how many kids do you have?
I have 3.
Oh man, yeah, you got your hands full.
Yeah,
Well, I guess your wife definitely has her hands full.
Yes, I got 2 girls and a boy, and they love coming to the gym with me. So, whenever they want to come, I'm like, yeah, let's go. Let's do it,
That's awesome. Do they train any jiu-jitsu or anything yet?
I'll probably get my son here in it sometime soon. He's 6 years old right now, so I'm not really trying to burn him out on the sport, at an early age.
Oh,
So
yeah.
let him decide when he's ready to actually start doing it. So probably here in the next year or so, I'll get him into it. My daughter was doing a couple of the kickboxing classes here, and she does love it, but she also does other extracurricular activities like band, and then she has a CEO club and all that stuff after school. So she's a busy kid.
That's awesome. What's the CEO club? That sounds like something I would have liked when I was a kid.
It's like they try to get you to like come up with your own business, and then they do like little vendor craft fairs and stuff, so they can sell items, at the
Oh,
vendor.
that's sick.
And they could try to make, basically try to run their own business while they're young, so they can learn how to manage their money and all that. So it's pretty
Oh,
neat.
that's cool. How old is she?
She is 11 now.
Oh, okay. So she's getting into that pretty young. That's awesome.
And I probably had her in boxing gloves since she was about 2. So
Oh, wow.
she could throw a punch.
Yeah, she could probably knock me out.
She's like her dad. She's crazy. She'll throw 100 punches, not care. So
That's awesome. When did you start getting into martial arts?
I started wrestling when I was in 7th grade. But really, when I was little, I started boxing with my brothers, because my brothers all used to box for Terry Davis out of Knuckles Gym. I don't know if you heard of him or not, but Terry's been around forever. He's out of Madison now. And I started when I was little with my brothers, and they would drag me along with them. And one of my brothers actually won the Golden Gloves, and the other one took second when they were actually boxing. And then I didn't get back
Nice.
into combat sports until 7th grade, and that's when I started wrestling. And my wrestling coach looked at me, and he was like, "Hey man, would you be interested for the kids club?" And I looked at him, and I was like, "Man, I have no money." And he's like, "Don't worry about the money, just show up." So I started showing up, and before you know it, it was me and my 2 other brothers wrestling, and he'd take us out every weekend. So it's pretty good experience from there. And then I got into martial arts, I want to say in 2011. I started training some jiu-jitsu at Lifestyles Academy in Belleville under Coach Mike Rethelmeyer. Then I had an MMA fight. It was November 11th, 2011. So it was 11/11/11. I fought on that day, and then shortly after found out my wife was pregnant, so I had to put everything to a halt, and all that. And then I looked at my wife. It was around right before COVID. I was like, I'm gonna get back into training. I need this, because I felt like I missed out on a lot of chances that I could have had.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I just posted a clip of Jesse where he was talking about that. Like, you got to take the chances while you have them because, one day you wake up and you can't do it anymore, or like you're too old, or you got too many injuries. You gotta capitalize on your youth while you have it.
Right. And I'm getting to the point in my, where I'm getting older. So I'm like, I either got to make something out of it and go pro, or, just train and, give up fighting just because, like you said, injuries happen and all that. So it's rough trying to recover back from one.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that. So it was your ACL you tore or something
Yes.
like that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I tore
Um.
my ACL and broke my hand and all in the same fight. So
Oh, Jesus.
it was, it
Man, Edgar must have a hard head because I think Gabe Stein broke his hand when he fought Edgar too.
Man, he's got a hard head because I went in to throw a punch in at him and it missed, so I came back with like a fist, and yeah, I broke it. It was not a
Oh,
choice. So anybody that likes spinning back fists and all that, just know you could break your hand doing it.
yeah. Especially with MMA gloves, man.
Yes.
Could probably get away with it in kickboxing, but that's tough. I
Mm,
never would have guessed though. I mean, like I said, I think I said that after your fight. Like you put on a pretty good poker face because I had no idea until right after the fight. I could tell you were hurt, but during the fight, I had no clue.
yeah, I walked over to my corner after the second round, and I look at coach, and I was like, Lucas, my knee's messed up, and he's like, what you want to do? And I'm like, well, obviously I'm going back out there. So, I went back out there and they're telling me to throw a kick. So as soon as I stepped in, my leg buckles and I'm like, oh man. And I'm just glad I was able to finish the fight, without being finished because I hate getting finished.
Yeah. Yeah, you hung in there for sure. I mean, it just shows that even through adversity, I mean, you can survive. So, where a lot of fighters, may not have been able to do that. I mean, that just even though you lost a fight, you showed that you're tough and you showed you have heart. So, I think that's a good thing. I think there's definitely something to be said for that for sure. But what's it like? I've always wondered this with injuries because I mean, I'm not exactly in my early 20s anymore either, so I'm like I'm more injury prone than I ever have been.
Right.
So, what's it like kind of recovering not only physically but mentally when you are dealing with an injury like that, especially an ACL? I mean, that's a brutal injury.
It's really tough mentally because you don't know if you're going to be able to train again. So you're just hoping that everything works out fine. My hand wasn't even a big deal. I had the ACL surgery and it was like, oh my God, it's the worst pain ever. And then everybody was like, just keep walking on it, keep walking on it. So I ended up going to Patrick Givant's fight, like, I think like a week and a half after my surgery, and then ended up cornering him. So the advice
I
actually,
remember I saw you there. You had a cane.
yeah, I kind of needed it a little bit because I was limping. So, but
God.
I'm a lot better now. I was able to run on the treadmill and do all that. So I'm excited for the fight on May 4th. It's supposed to be a pretty tough opponent. He's pretty game. So I'm game too. So we'll see what happens on that day.
That's awesome. Yeah, you and Pat are fighting on the same card, huh?
Yes, he's actually fighting for the 135-pound title. He's
Nice.
fighting a pretty solid guy in jiu-jitsu. Patrick's jiu-jitsu is actually great as well. So we'll,
Yeah.
we'll see where the fight goes.
Yeah, that was one thing I noticed watching his fight was just his grappling is next level. I mean, especially at an amateur level, you don't see grappling like that very often. So I was impressed for sure.
Yeah, his grappling is anytime I need any kind of wrestling advice, I'm like, Pat, come here, man. I need a little bit, help him tweaking my wrestling because when he was 6 years old, I was reffing his matches. So I already know he's a great wrestler just from watching him wrestle growing up. And
Oh, wow.
I hated reffing his matches because he would go into double overtime, triple overtime with these kids and then end up winning out of nowhere. And I'm like, dude, come on, man. You almost gave me a heart attack.
That's awesome. So he's that definitely makes sense then. He's been wrestling a long time.
Yeah, he ended up wrestling select as well, so it helps in the room. It helps with the jujitsu and all that. So, um, if you're a wrestler, you can adapt to jujitsu a little bit easier than somebody that hasn't done it before.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think probably the more difficult discipline to cross over from would probably be like kickboxing or karate or something like that because I mean, well, actually, I think kickboxers have had a fair amount of success in MMA, but still, I think that having a wrestling base has got to be still the best just because the cardio, um, the grind of it, the weight cutting too. I feel like that just seems to really prepare fighters for MMA better than some other disciplines. But I don't know. It's an interesting time in MMA. And what's really interesting now is we're seeing a lot more boxing technique, I feel like, in MMA than we used to. I feel
Yes,
like that's
I can't
kind of
remember the
getting more
guy that
popular.
just fought. Who was that? The guy that knocked out Volkanovski. He has
Taporia.
Yeah, he has mostly boxing. The way he did, I was
Mm-hmm.
like, wow, that was amazing. Because I
Yeah.
honestly did not see that one coming.
Honestly, I didn't either. I thought that Volkanovski's experience alone would be enough to beat him, but yeah, Ilya, he didn't have any problems.
Yeah,
He made it look easy.
it was definitely his night that night for sure. Because he just went in
Yeah.
and did his thing and came out on top. So, congrats to him.
He sure did. Yeah, it was cool to see a new champion at featherweight just because like you rarely see a new champion there. I mean, it's been Jose Aldo, Max Holloway and Volkanovski for so long. And well, I mean Connor, he's in there too, but but
Yeah,
like, when you think of featherweight, you think Holloway, you think Volkanovski and you think Jose Aldo to me. That to me is like the pinnacle of featherweight. Um but yeah, it's just sad to see Volkanovski lose too, because he was so dominant for so long and had pretty much. I mean, I know the Holloway fights were close, but other than that, had pretty much a perfect run in the UFC until he ran into Makhachev. So
yeah. Like I said, wrestling, man. If I could learn some Dagestani wrestling, that'd be good. You know, them
you know
guys.
what's crazy though? In the Yair fight, he looked like he was from Dagestan, and then I don't know what happened.
Yeah. So
It's funny. Well, what I guess like I mean, I know you've been training martial arts for a while, but did you know like how long have you known like oh, I want to be a fighter or how did that kind of happen? Like was there a moment that kind of inspired you or like a lot of people they see The Ultimate Fighter, they see a big fight and they're like, "Ooh, I want to do that." Is that what happened with you or did you just kind of slowly get involved in it?
no, like I said, my brothers kind of like pushed me towards boxing, so I fell in love with fighting when I first went with them to Knuckles Gym, and then after wrestling, I was like, man, I gotta be able to do something. So that's when, like I said, when I went to go join the jujitsu gym over in Belleville, and I started doing jujitsu. And then for so long, I would talk about it after I stopped, training and everything, that I was going to do it again, that I was going to do it again. And then by the time I looked, it's been 10 years, so I was like, I got to get back in it. It's just something in me that likes to fight. Because I ended up fighting 6 times last year before I tore my ACL.
Oh wow.
Yeah. It was supposed to be close to 10, but coach gets on me a little bit about that. So he's like, you got to take smart
He's like,
fights, man.
slow down.
So you can't be fighting every
That's
weekend,
funny.
man. So yeah, he's definitely a good coach to have because he not only cares about us, but he actually wants us to fight at the right weight class. You know, I fought at 155 before, and
Oh
it
gosh.
it was the weirdest feeling ever because I get in the elevator and Austin Hayes is right next to me. I'm right next to him, and he's literally like a foot and a half taller than me. And I'm like, man, what am I gonna do to this dude? So I tried grappling him, and it did not work out. It worked maybe for about 10 seconds, and then he got a choke, and I was off my feet in the air, and I had a tap. There was no way out of that one. But
Yeah,
it's
I was curious about that because I saw that on your record that you fought Austin, and I know like I've seen his brother fight. Well, he just fought recently, Ray Hayes, and they're almost like the same size. Like they're both pretty tall. So I was like, how in the heck did he fight this guy? I was like, how did this happen?
it was it was definitely a fight I shouldn't have done, but I did it anyway. Because
Yeah,
at the time they were like, "Hey man, can you do this?" And I was wanting to fight anyway, so I was like, "Yeah,
yeah.
whatever, run it." You know, I at the time I didn't even know who Ray Hayes was, and then I started looking into it after I fought, and I'm like, "Oh man," I was like, "These guys are killers." So
That's
I
funny.
wasn't really too much upset after that. I was like, these guys are on a good level of fighting. So, and just about
Yeah, I'd say that loss aged pretty well for you.
and just about every guy that I fought has had a chance to fight for some kind of title in the Amis and either won it or came close to it. So the goal is
That's
to
funny.
get the title.
What'd you say?
I said the goal is to try to get me a title in either
Yeah.
kickboxing or MMA, maybe both. Who knows? But uh, I definitely know that uh, Eric Sanchez, the black belt that I fought in kickboxing, he actually just won the 125-pound title for MMA for Cage of Honor, and I'm really happy for him. And then the guy that I fought, Derek Skaggs, which is his teammate, I ended up fighting him before I started at Finney's MMA. It was last year in December, or not last year. What was it? 20 back in 2022. So it was December of 2022 is when I fought him, and he was a great fight actually, but he was a lot bigger. So that's when I decided I got to cut. I got to get cutting to weight because I usually walk around like 135, 138. So 125
Oh
wouldn't be
wow.
a big drop for me. Like when I fought Torres, I was weighing 138, and they're like, "Hey man, can you fight?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll do it." And I even asked coach because I knew that Pat's arm was messed up the day before because we were doing jujitsu, and one of the guys in jujitsu cranked on a submission too hard, and he was a higher ranking belt, and he ended up messing his arm pretty bad. So
Mm. So was that fight originally supposed to be for Pat?
yeah, that the Torres fight
Oh,
was originally for Pat, and I ended up stepping in so Edgar would have an opponent. Basically,
right.
that's why I did because I was supposed to fight actually the next weekend, kickboxing for Kings of Kickboxing, and if I wouldn't have broke my hand and tore my ACL, I would have been there.
Dang. That's tough luck.
Yeah, because
Well, you can turn it around.
I know, like I knew that I could do 2 fights 2 weeks in a row, but is getting mentally, physically, and prepared to do it
Yeah.
is what gets to you, you know. And then my MMA record isn't that great because of the fights that I took that I shouldn't have took, you know. Um, Off the record, it's 3-5, but on Tapology it says it's 2-4. So I'm like, yeah, man, that's horrible. Yeah, and I fought at 145 before, and I don't think that guy has fought since then. Pat told me he had like an asthma attack, and he didn't even have asthma after that. But he ended
Interesting.
up slamming me probably in the second or third round, and I no, it was the second round. I ended up breaking three vertebrae in my back that fight.
Oh my god.
So I want to say after that, that's when I took short time off, and then I ended up fighting Patrick Gordon. You know, everybody calls him Peaches, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, I ended up fighting him. Probably like a week after the doctor released me, so I got zero training time in to fight him. And honestly, I had never done kickboxing until I stepped into that cage to do kickboxing with him. So it
Really?
was a good experience.
Oh my gosh. That's crazy.
And yeah,
So you
it's
had only really done boxing before that?
yeah, yeah. I
Wow.
actually started doing kickboxing until it would be a year ago in 2023, right after the Derek Skaggs fight. After I lost to him, I was like, man, I got too many losses. I got to turn it around. I got to do something. So then Patrick actually courted me for that fight, and then he talked me into coming down to Finney's. And then I met Lucas Lopes, and he's actually a great coach to have because he has a lot of professional fights. You know, he has, I want to say, 55 plus fights somewhere in there. It's a
Oh
ridiculous
my god.
amount. Yeah. So he's got pretty good experience, you know, with fighting. You know, Strike Force veteran.
Yeah.
So
That's
I'm
awesome.
I'm happy, really happy to be training under him.
Yeah, yeah, I've heard great things about him from a lot of the fighters. I remember, well, I think it was that show that I did the interviews at. There was a bunch of Finney's guys on that card, and they all had great things to say too. So that's awesome. That's really cool. Um, I was I wanted to ask you this question because I get mixed responses on this from fighters. But when you are getting ready to walk out, I mean, you seem like you're pretty tough. You seem like, you're game for anything. I mean, you you take fights on short notice. You do all kinds of crazy things, but do you get scared? Do you get nervous? Do you get scared when you
Man, I
walk
get
out?
scared every time. I don't care who it is. If somebody tells you that they are not scared, they are lying. I get scared every time. I don't care who it is, who I'm fighting. There's a fear in the back of that head. If I don't have that fear, I feel like I'm not going to be dangerous enough. Patrick always
Yeah.
said that if you got a scared fighter, that's more difficult to beat up than somebody that's not scared because, you know, a scared fighter is going to fight till death. And if you don't have even a little bit of scare in you, then I don't know, man. I think you're lying. Because I honestly I get
Yeah.
nervous every time. It might look like I'm calm and not nervous and all that, but I'm nervous inside. You know, it like I said, it doesn't matter who I fight. I'm nervous. It's just the way it is. I guess it helps me too at times because it helps me push myself and stay determined not to lose because it sucks losing. You know what I mean? But it happens.
Right. Yeah, I think there's good things about fear. Fear isn't always bad. I mean, it's a negative emotion. It feels negative, but I don't think it's bad because I think sometimes you need fear in order to know that you're doing the right things. because if you're doing something and you're not scared, then it's like, why am I not scared? You know, if you're going into a fight and you're not scared, it's like, well, then maybe your opponent isn't tough enough, or maybe, you know, like you have to be scared. Like you said, you have to be. There's no way you could go walk out and get beat up in a cage and not be scared. Because even if you win, you know, even if you win, maybe you don't have the best performance, or maybe you get injured like you did. I mean, you've dealt with multiple injuries. So it's like, even losing isn't even the only thing to be afraid of. I mean, this sport is freaking brutal. So, yeah, that's a good point.
And like, I'm not really more scared of the opponent. I'm more scared of him hurting me. You know, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Like, it's getting hurt is the thing. Like, when I fought Edgar, I took him down, and I immediately felt like there was something wrong with my knee. Like, the first 20 seconds of the fight, I felt the tear in there, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Dang. That's that sucks. Oh man. It's hard. I mean, like, there's some injuries you can fight through. Like, if it was just the broken hand, you probably would have been able to pull it off, but man, fighting with a torn ACL, I don't know really. I haven't heard of many fighters that have been able to win a fight with a torn ACL.
it's not fun because you gotta step, kick, anything. Your leg just
Yeah.
buckles under you. And I'm like, what is wrong with my leg? And like, immediately, as soon as it started buckling, I was like, man, there's something wrong here. So,
Yeah,
it's a
do you
tough
feel
one.
like taking that? I mean, you've been pretty busy. You said you fought like 6 times in the past year. Do you feel like taking that time off just made you hungrier to get back in there?
Yeah, I love to fight. There's something wrong with me because not, you know, a lot of guys are like, yeah, fight 2, 3 times a year. No, I want to fight 6, 8, 10 times a year, but you know, there's limits to it and all that. So I gotta slow my roll a little bit, and
Yeah.
it might be because I'm getting older and I feel like, you know, I'm 33 already. So how many more years do I really have, you know, in the sport?
Yeah. I feel that. I know that's why I had such a sense of urgency to get back into training, cuz like I look down and I'm like, man, it's been like a year since I've even, I mean, and I like was still hitting the bag and stuff, but I wasn't going to any gyms or anything for train like actual training.
Right.
And then I was like, oh man, I got to get back into it, cuz you know, I'm in, yeah, like I mean, I'm not as old as you. I'm 20. How old am I? Oh, I'm 28. I almost said 27. I still
But
haven't accepted it yet. But
sometimes it takes a while, man.
yeah. Yeah, and well, and I'll be 29 this year. So I'm like, yeah, I don't have that much time left. You know, if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to actually like, even if I don't fight, I just want to learn, you know, and even training, you know, if you get to a point where you have too many injuries, or your your body breaks down, you know, you can't even do that anymore. So I'm like, I gotta do this while I'm still able to. Otherwise, I'm gonna look back and be like, dang, I should have gone to the gym more. Should have trained more. Should have learned kickboxing. I should have, you know, challenged myself. So, and part of the reason that I started training again too was because I knew I wanted to kind of start my career in media, and I just thought to myself, like, I don't think I can do this. I mean, you can, but for me personally, I'm like, I can't do this if I'm not actually going to the gym and learning these things, you know? Like, I think that for me to talk about MMA and for me to interview fighters and do what I'm doing, I think I have to train. Just for me, you know, it just feels like it helps me level up everything else so much more.
Yeah, it definitely does. Like I said, I started coming to the gym here at Finney's MMA because, you know, Pat cornered me, and then I got tired of losing. It's hard to come back, you know, from 5 losses and get motivated to try to train and win, you know. And then I came back, won 2 MMA fights, then won 2 kickboxing fights, and then ended up losing an exhibition MMA fight, which is not on my record, like a week after I fought in Indiana, and then a couple weeks later, ended up fighting Edgar. So those two were kind of hard to swallow. So I definitely
Yeah.
stepped up my training because of the fact that I don't like losing, but everybody handles it differently. When I lose, it makes me more motivated to get to working out and all that.
Well, that's good. That's a good thing then. And you're an amateur, so, you know, I mean, I know there's an amateur record, but, once you go pro, none of that matters because
Right, and that's
not
what.
really many people are going to look at your amateur record. So,
Yeah. So, and that's what everybody keeps saying. It's like it doesn't matter. I was like, well, it kind of matters a little bit to me if I could even that out. My kickboxing record's
yeah.
not bad. I'm 2-2 in kickboxing, but and if I wouldn't have fought Skaggs, I would have been 2-1. But he was a great fight. I love that fight. He kicked me so hard right back here in the head, and I caught his leg and he fell on his butt, and I just gave him that look like, "Come on, dude, let's do it." And I said something to him. He said something back to me. So, like the last round, we're just sitting there talking shit to each other, swinging at each other really hard. And he's like, "You're not going to talk like that to my coach." And I didn't even know who his coach was at the time. I'm just sitting there, I'm mad. I'm just seeing red like a bull. And I ended up actually fighting with him, going all 3 rounds, but man, that kid hits hard. Like his kicks and his punches, I'm surprised he didn't put me out, honestly, because I ended up fighting him. He just gave me that head kick, and I ate it. I had a knot in the back of my head for 3 weeks.
Oh my God. That's rough. Yeah, that wouldn't be fun getting kicked in the back of the head.
No, there's actually a couple people here that have pretty good head kicks. If they ever use them in a fight, watch out, because they're gonna put somebody to sleep.
I saw Hannah threw that head kick in her last fight, and I'm surprised that didn't put her opponent to sleep.
I was surprised the way they did her, really, the judges, because she knocked that girl down, like
Yeah,
flat, like kicked her, and she was down. And I'm like, man, like how did she even lose this fight? But you already know if you let it go to the judges, it's a coin flip then.
it's a crapshoot. Yeah,
Yeah, because the judges are gonna, I don't even know what they're thinking. They're gonna do what they want, I guess. But
yeah, exactly.
but she should have definitely
Yeah,
won that fight. Like that was not cool. I was not happy about that one because
did they end up? Was it a? I thought it was a draw. Was it a loss
no, it was a
for Hannah?
draw. They ended up ruling it a
Oh,
draw.
okay.
Like at first they said it was a loss, but I think it was just a misreading of the cards. But she ended up
Mm.
doing a draw with that girl. But honestly, in my
Hmm.
eyes, I think she won that fight. She
Yeah, she's really good.
good. She hits hard, like really hard.
I know she does. I've seen her hit the bag and stuff too. Like she'll post it on Facebook. I'm like, man, I wouldn't want to be in the way of that.
Yeah, I hit pads with her one time. We're hitting their pads, and I'm like, dude, you're hurting my hand. Like, how hard do you hit? And I'm just shaking my hand, like, dude, I do not want to spar with you. Luckily, I have not sparred with her.
That's hilarious. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, that's the thing with like people underestimate women in MMA so much in kickboxing because they don't expect us to have that much power, but I'm like, dude, some of these girls got some power, I'm telling you. Like
Man, some of these girls got power, and they got the jujitsu down pat too, and they're more flexible than guys. So like a submission that wouldn't work on you going against a guy, a girl is gonna be able to pull it off arm bar, triangle, whatever. Before you know it, you're gonna be stuck in a submission. Like, what in the world? So they they really underestimate women's fighting in my eyes. I think
Yeah.
because a lot of them do put in the work. They get in there, they train, they give it all. They give it their all, just like the men do, so they can become successful. So they they do need to give more credit to women fighting. To me, I rather watch women fights because a lot of the times the women are more scrappier than the men. Not a lot, not
Yeah.
always, but a lot of the times they're a lot more scrappier. So I definitely
I feel like
enjoy fights.
we're more a little more emotional, so maybe that's why. We're just like we're
It's gotta be,
always trying to prove something.
yeah. So like that girl just hit me. I gotta hit her back 10 times harder. So
That's funny. Yeah, no, Hannah's awesome. I got to hang out with her a little bit at the Shamrock fights a couple times, and she's so cool. She works her ass off too. I mean, I think she works full time, and she seems like she's got a lot going on, but she still finds time to train and takes her fighting career seriously. So that's awesome.
yeah, that's the hardest thing to do is come to the gym and train. And
Yeah.
after work. Like if you get over that obstacle from in between work and coming to the gym, then you're good. Because once you're here, you're here. You're gonna do your workout.
Right.
But it's getting that motivation and getting to the gym. And I know for the last fight that she did against that girl, she was in here every single day putting
Wow.
work. So. Uh, she definitely didn't want to lose to that girl. And I do know she's got a fight coming up sometime. I think in
Oh,
June, maybe.
nice.
So hopefully we get to see her in action again.
That would be awesome.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
I always love watching her fight.
Yeah, I don't know if she's actually got it set, done deal on paper, but she says she's supposed to be fighting in June sometime. So hopefully
Nice.
she does and she puts on a show. Because
Can't wait.
I seen her kick that real tall girl. What was that girl's name? Jenny.
I think I know who you're talking about.
She was fighting Jenny Smith at one time, and I'm like,
Yeah.
why is she fighting this girl? She's freaking tall. And then Kana throws that leg kick up and kicks her in the head, and I'm like, what in the world just happened? And she did it multiple times. So, uh,
She must
um,
have some long legs then.
man, I don't know. I think it's that flexibility because I try to throw a head kick and it lands at the ribs. Like it's
Yeah.
bad. Pat
Yeah, I
has
can't kick
has good
very
head
high.
kick. But I've been working on them, and I'm not confident yet to throw them in a fight. But
Yeah.
I try to work on everything. I do got to work on my basics some more because basics are always key. Sometimes I catch myself coming in a little bit too much, throwing wild, being
Yeah.
a bull instead of being the bullfighter. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel like it's little things, it's basics a lot of times that make a big difference, especially in the amateur level. If you can really master the basics, I think that's a good recipe for success because you do notice a lot of times in amateur fights, sometimes fighters don't understand distance as much. So, like, that's one thing that I've noticed is just like from amateur to pro, it seems like the pros have more of a grasp on footwork, distance, and stuff like that, cardio, those little things. I mean, if you can figure that out when you're an amateur, I think that prepares you really well for the pros because yeah, like you said, the basics, it's makes a big difference.
Yeah,
Because, like you said, you threw the spinning back fist and broke your hand. So,
yeah, that's not a good idea. I don't like back fists no more at all. Like it was literally like this, and then went back at it like this, and I'm like, no, it's not happening, never again. Cause
yeah,
like
that's
I didn't
rough.
even know my hand was broke. I just knew my knee was injured, and then
Yeah.
coach is like, let's get these gloves off so we can hurry up and get you to the hospital. and he takes off the glove and he's cutting the wrap, and I look down at my hand and I'm like, Coach, I think my hand's broke. He's like, yeah, it broke. It broke. I'm like, damn. It's like, all right,
Oh
Coach,
my
guess we're
God.
going to the hospital. So, and I couldn't get my surgery until my hand healed because of the fact that they didn't want me to have a bad leg and a bad hand and, you know, be all messed up. So it
That makes sense.
it was a process to recover. It was a hard one actually
Yeah.
because it's when you're used to coming to the gym every single day and training, and then you go from that to not being able to train. It gets to you, you know. So I'm excited for May 4th. I do want to thank the Southern Indiana Combat Production for having me on the show again, uh, as well as Jesse Finney for letting me train here at the gym and being able to get in there and throw some hands.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you like fighting at home or do you like fighting away better?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I have horrible luck in St. Louis. Like I have no luck in St. Louis. I go out of town and I have great luck. I go over to Indiana and do kickboxing. I love it out there. Them guys are always a great crowd out there. Um, for some reason, they like watching me fight, so I keep going out there and fighting. But I don't mind fighting in St. Louis because I've had people ask, "Hey man, when are you gonna quit taking fights out of town and fight in St. Louis again?" And I'm like, when the time's right, it'll happen. But for now, I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing, and hopefully, May, what is it, May 4th, you know, get the W and come on top. But I'm not gonna count my eggs or however you say. I'm not gonna get ahead of myself. I'm just gonna set up a game
Sure.
plan, try to stick to my game plan, and if game plan A doesn't work, then we go to B. If B doesn't work, then you go to C and D, and then if you run out of options, then you just throw hands. But the guy that I'm fighting May 4th, he's been boxing his whole life, so it's kind of interesting of a fight. So uh, I'm not sure what his game plan is. I know last time that I fought for Southern Indiana, my opponent comes up to me and he's like, "Hey man, do you want to stang and bang or are you gonna take it to the ground?" And right then and there, I was like, "Man, he just taught me he can't wrestle. I'm taking it to the ground." So because I've watched a lot of Trey Williams fights, and all his fights, his kickboxing fights, he's got good hands, good foot movement. He's a 125-pound champion right now for Griggs Entertainment for kickboxing. He fights this weekend actually against Reed, guy in Geinhardt or however you say his name, and it's a rematch between them two. So that'll be a scrap. Uh, but yeah, as soon as he came up to me and said, "Hey man, we doing we staying and banging or we going to the ground?" And I just looked at him, I was like, I guess we'll see. And I walked away and I was like, yes. I was like, you know, I was like, I'm going for a takedown. So
That's hilarious.
yeah,
Do
because
you know what the ground game's like on your next opponent?
uh little bit, but honestly, I'm not quite sure. I've heard some things, but I'm not sure
Sure.
what his ground is like. I just know that he's been training boxing forever, and if he wrestled for a couple years, then I might be in trouble. I don't know. So I definitely don't want to get ahead of myself thinking that he doesn't
Yeah.
have ground game, but
Right.
if worse comes to worse, I gotta be able to try to get it to the ground. Just in case I'm not winning the stand up on the feet. But I
Right.
looked at his box rec and I was told he has so many fights. So and you know how boxing is, he could have a 5-6 record on BoxRec, but he could have 10, 20 other fights that were underground or whatever didn't even count. So
Yeah.
that's got me a little bit nervous just because of the number of boxing fights he has. But other than that, I was not really worried about it because it's a 125 pounder, so I really haven't fought guys my size. So if I get to fight a guy my size, I think it'll be better for me. It'll favor me a little bit more.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. That's huge. Um, have you fought anybody else at 125 in your career?
No, I was
Oh.
actually supposed to cut down to 125 right after the Torres fight that next weekend and fight Reed Geinhardt, whatever his name is. I can never say it right. Um, and ended up messing up my leg, breaking my hand. I was like, Coach, I can still do it. I can still do it, Coach. And he's like, No, dude, you got a broken hand. You got a messed up leg. No. And I'm like, All right, man. So we ended up having to tell the promoter, which I felt really, really bad because I had that fight scheduled for months already. And I felt bad when I had to tell him that I couldn't do it, and because I knew my opponent was training for a while. He's training hard. He's a black belt in karate, so it was basically to see if I would have fought him, I would have won that. Then the promotion would have gave me a chance at a title for 125, but we're still trying to work that one out.
Interesting. Yeah, I know. It's funny you mentioned that because I know you were trying to get a boxing fight right after that, weren't you? Because you couldn't couldn't train anything else.
Yeah, my wife looked at me and she's like, "You're crazy." I was like, "Well, I can't do kickboxing. I can't do MMA. So why not boxing?" And she's like, "You got issues." I'm like, "I just like to fight. Like, what's wrong with boxing?" So I had a couple people reach out, but at the time it was like, "Man, do I really want to get in there and mess my leg up some?" Because boxing, you still got to do some kind of foot movement. And
Yes.
knowing me, I wouldn't do any foot movement because my legs messed up, and I'll just be throwing hands, and that could end badly. Get knocked out or whatever the case may be.
Oh yeah. Definitely. Yeah, boxing's very reliant on movement. It's funny though cuz I had Tony Soto on here too and he's a bare knuckle boxer. And that's why he got into bare knuckle boxing was because I think he tore his ACL from skateboarding, but because he was like a pro skater before
Right.
he went to BKFC, and that's what happened. So he went to BKFC, but if you still because I think he tore his ACL a few times, but yeah, but if you are injured during the fight, that's a different story. But if you're recovered from the injury and you just don't want to re-injure it, then that's another thing. Because, yeah, I know that because he was doing MMA before too, but he just got injured so many times, so he couldn't do MMA, and then just decided to go the BKFC route. But it worked out pretty well for him because I think he's
Yeah.
6-0 now.
Yeah. So hopefully they let him fight for a title, man. 6-0 is pretty good for bare knuckle.
I
So
know.
uh, hopefully he gets in there and does it because I mean, if you tear your ACL twice and then you go on to bare knuckle and you got a 6-0 record, man, you're a beast. You got some skills behind you. So I wish him the
Yeah.
best for sure.
Yeah, he just opened his own gym too in North Carolina. That's where he lives. He opened a boxing gym, but they do bare knuckle boxing training too, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, that is pretty cool because not many areas actually. I don't know about. I know around where I live, not many places have, boxing or
Yeah.
kickboxing. Though the gym that we do pass is Maryville Kickboxing. On the way here to practice actually, and honestly, I think that's the only one that side of the river that I know of. I know
Oh,
there's
yeah, that's Chad Mueller's gym.
yeah, yep, and I know
Yeah,
I think the other one I guess would be Flagger, but he does like MMA and stuff more, a, lo-
right.
a lot of striking. So them guys
Yeah,
are
I'm trying to
pretty
think
good
of
as
where
well.
there is a gym like that, but I mean, I know there's some boxing gyms, but I don't know if they're like boxing gyms where they have like boxer size or if it's actual like fighting training, because there's so many gyms that like you think it's a kickboxing gym, but really it's just circuit training. It's like, okay, hit the bag and then do push-ups and then do this, and it's like you're not really learning technique. You're
Right.
just it's exercise,
Yeah.
which is great. For people who don't want to get punched in the face, but but it's like, yeah, you see a lot of those, but not a lot of like actual stand-up gyms besides like Maryville Muay Thai, like you said.
Yeah, and that's another reason why me and Pat drive so far to come to Finney's MMA is because they offer the kickboxing here, they offer the jiu-jitsu, they offer judo, and then they offer all the exercise equipment. They got the sauna. I mean, they have everything we need here for a fighter to train. You got it at your disposal. You just gotta want it and use the equipment. So
Right.
that's one of the reasons why we come down here is because of the fact that it has the jujitsu, it has the kickboxing, it has the judo. And if you don't feel like doing jujitsu that day, you gonna go do kickboxing. Um, but I like my jujitsu, so I try not to miss. And they do have
Yeah.
kickboxing afterwards, so you could always go to kickboxing class after jujitsu. So that's the thing that I do like is that you could train jujitsu, kickboxing, and even get a run in after you get done training because the gym's open until 9 o'clock. So uh, they're they're
Oh, that's sweet.
they're really beneficial for us because of all the equipment that they have here that a lot of gyms might not have. Some gyms might just do strictly kickboxing. Well, what about my ground game? I got to be able to work some ground game and some striking so I could try to work all areas of the fight game, not just one specific thing.
Yeah, that's huge too. And having a good class schedule, I feel like, is an underrated thing too. Cause like some gyms, they're amazing, but they don't have like the class times that I need. So I'm like, ah, I'm like, I need after this time, or I need a Saturday class, or I need this. So it's like, especially when you have a job like and you're balancing that with training, you got to have a good schedule and good options for classes. So that's awesome.
Yeah, because it gets rough. I mean, I'm putting in about 55 to 60 hours a weekend, and then I got to come train. So them
Oh
having
Jesus.
class at 5:30 and then having another one at 6:30 and then having sparring and all that actually is really beneficial because you can look at the classes, okay, and be like, okay, this is my schedule for this week and this is how I'm going to train, and it actually helps out a lot, because of that. Unlike some gyms where they might just have MMA class from 4 to 5 and that's it. There is no more training after that. So it,
Right.
it really helps out with the times that they have here for me.
Yeah, definitely. I think certain gyms too, like, some gyms have more AMI fighters, some gyms have more pro fighters, or, there's some gyms that even have like a bunch of UFC fighters. So those gyms, I feel like they tend to have more daytime stuff. And then the gyms that have the AMI fighters, it would make more sense for them to have the evening classes because a lot of the AMIs, they still got to have a full time job. So,
Yeah, and that's the hard thing about being an AMI is that even when you go pro, the pros don't really get
yeah.
paid too much, so if they're not actually physically coaching at the gym and making money or have their own gym, then they gotta have a job as well too. So it gets hard for a lot of fighters, definitely.
Oh, yeah. That's got to be the hardest part is just balancing everything. It's definitely a balancing act. That's for sure.
So Yeah, it's hard. It's rough on me because I'll start my day off at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and I don't get home till after 9 o'clock at night. And then I got to spend time with the kids, spend time with my wife. Before I know it, I look down and it's midnight already, and I got to be back up at 5 a.m. and do it all over again. So it's
And then you're not getting full recovery because you're not getting enough sleep.
exactly. So there's days where like I'll wake up on a Saturday and it's like, man, I don't want to go to work. So I'll sleep in an hour or two and show up at 7. My boss is like, man, where you been at? I'm like, man, I was sleeping. He's like, all right, and kind of just like puts his head down, but he knows that I'm gonna stay there as long as he needs me to. So it works out for me and it works out for him because he's the type of guy that's there 4 in the morning until 4:30 every single day, Monday through Saturday. I'm like, man, I don't know how you guys do it, but that lifestyle is not for me. I got to be able to fight, hit somebody in the face or something. It, I'm. That's just how I feel, Like, uh, it just got to be from my brothers just pushing me because I grew up with
Yeah.
eight brothers. I got 8 brothers and 1 sister. So, and
Oh,
actually,
wow.
believe it or not, my sister's the meanest one out of all of them. She had to put up with all of us. So if you mess with her, like, good luck, because I'm not helping you.
That's funny. Are you originally from St. Louis?
Um, I grew I grew up over in Illinois, on
Mm-hmm.
the East St. Louis side, but my parents actually brought me over here from Villanueva, Zacatecas, over in Mexico, and they ended up bringing me over here. My dad got his citizenship right around when I was in 5th grade. So that's when they told him, hey, anybody that you have under 18, we can naturalize them as citizens. So me, myself, I got lucky and become a U.S. citizen. My 4 older brothers, they had to join the military or figure out their own citizenship. But he was able to get them green cards at the time, so that was able to help out. So
Yeah, for
I'm
sure.
really grateful for my mom and dad for bringing me over here, because it could be 10 times worse. Back from the area of Mexico that they're from and all that, there's very little jobs over there and a lot of poverty. And if one day I could go back down there and help some kids out, help a gym out, something, it'd be a plus in my book. So I definitely like to keep my Hispanic roots, my Mexican roots. I love walking out to Hispanic songs. So if it's not a Hispanic song, man, I don't want to walk out to it. So. It, it's just it gets me ready, it gets me in the moment. Some people gotta listen to rap or they gotta listen to rock or whatever. If I listen to some mariachis or some banda, I'm cool, I'm ready to go. So, and then
I listen to some banda every once in a while. I actually like
it's good, it's really good music.
puts me in a good mood.
It gets me going, and my wife's like, why are you so happy? And I'm like, man, it's the music, come on, man, live a little. And she doesn't get it because she doesn't understand what they're saying. She's
Sure.
American, so she's
Yeah.
not comprehending a lot of the words, but she's actually picked up a lot of Spanish from being with her because we've been together since 2009.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, we've been together for a while. So she tries to fool me like she doesn't understand, but she understands. She just can't speak the language yet. So
That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like I picked it up quickly because, and I don't really know that I can't speak Spanish, but I can understand it. I learned Latin roots when I was younger in middle school, and then I learned Spanish in high school. So like when I hear, certain words like corazon, like I know what it means, like I understand it, but I can't speak it.
Right,
So
right.
like I can read it and I can hear it and I kind of get what's going on. I just can't speak it.
Yeah, and I told her, like, if you listen to the music and actually understood it, you'd be like, "Oh man, that's a really nice song." But like I said, sometimes you got to be able to understand it, to
Yeah,
know what they're saying. But that's my thing. Coming out to Hispanic music, and just having a blast, and just enjoy the moment. You just enjoy the
that's
walk
awesome.
to the ring, and just, I don't know. It feels like that's the only time I feel alive is when I make the walk from the back to the ring or to the cage. It gives you another feeling to where you're just like, man, this you just can't explain it. Once you do your fight, or if you actually do a fight, you'll see what I'm talking about. You'll be like, good feeling. I want to
That's
do
what
it
I've
again.
heard.
So
That's what I've heard. Yeah, that's awesome. Did you see they're I think they already built it. I don't know if they've opened it yet, but they built a UFC PI in Mexico. Did you
I
see
think,
that?
yeah, I did see it. I think they did open it. I think it was this last UFC they had in Mexico.
Yeah.
Think I seen them opening it, but that's actually really interesting because there's a lot of good fighters coming out of that country. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
A
Good
lot
boxing.
of good fighters. A lot of them are boxers, but man, they get the wrestling down and they're good to go. So
Yeah. It's gonna be crazy. I'm excited. I'm excited because that's one thing. Like when you watch a fight, if they're from Mexico or if they have Mexican blood, it's gonna be a good fight. Like 99% of the time because of that toughness. Like you can't teach that. That is just in your blood. And that's
yeah,
what I saw in your fight, you and Edgar.
yeah, and then like I said, I hit him hard with my hand and broke it. And like he kind of backed up a little bit, but he came back forward, and I'm like, man, this dude does not stop. He does not stop. He just keeps coming. And I already knew it was going to be a war. Anytime that you fight, a Hispanic, it's
Yeah.
going to be a war. It's not going to be an easy fight. You're in there, for battle. And we were in the back room talking, and I look at Coach, and he's like, "What's wrong?" I was like, "Man, I hate fighting Hispanic people." And then Patrick looks and he's like, "Why?" He's like, "There's no way, dude." He's like, "It can." He's like, I think you're just scared. I was like, "Dude, no. It's like you fight another Hispanic, you don't want to do it." I was like, "Ask Coach if he wants to fight another Brazilian." He looked at him. He's like, I don't want to fight another Brazilian. It's because your own race. You know that was our thing too. When we used to, bet on the fights. Little dollar bets on fights. It'd always be, okay, is he a Brazilian? If he's a Brazilian, I'm betting on the Brazilian. And then next thing you look at the ears and see who has the most messed up ears, and then you make your bet. And every time, well, not every time, but a lot of the times, the Brazilian would win. So,
Yeah.
and
They are good at winning.
we used to watch UFC a lot when we were kids as well. So my buddy's dad would always have us watching UFC fights and everything. So I got to see, from the very beginning of UFC all the way up until man, I lost track. All the way until like UFC 100 and something, and then I quit watching it for a while because if you're watching fights, you just want to get in there and fight. And there for the
Yeah.
longest time ever, I couldn't do it because of having kids, financial reasons, and all that. So, uh, for a long time, I quit watching fights because I didn't want to get that hunger back in me. And then I started watching them again, and I'm like, man, I've been missing out on some good fights. And from the
Yeah.
time from I want to say from about 2009 up until now, the MMA game has changed so much. It's like you almost got to be good at everything. Uh, if not, you're gonna have some issues. So
Oh yeah. It's getting harder and harder to be a specialist. The more it evolves, it seems like.
yeah, it definitely is. So the guys that do that and can get it down pat, man, props to them because it takes a lot of work to, be great at jujitsu, be great at striking, be great at defending, whatever may happen. So,
Yeah,
coach
and do
does
it all
have a,
without getting hurt.
yeah, he has
That's
do
the
a lot
challenge.
of situational drills, like, do a drill where he'll make us spin real fast and then it feels like you're drunk and he has to spin, and then all of a sudden he's like, find your feet, get your hands up, and he'll have somebody try to take us down or they'll stand there and strike with us and we got to try to defend that. So it helps a lot when you train situations like that. So it gets you ready for the fight game. So uh,
Oh yeah, definitely.
definitely appreciate the help that I get from everybody here at the gym because one person can see one thing and another person can see another little thing that'd be like, man, if you do this a little bit different, you could get that submission right in there or whatever. And that's what me and Pat was talking about yesterday. It was like eighth of an inch over on the submission, and he was like, man, see right there is tighter. So he was able to basically help me get down pat to where you're blocking off the blood and making somebody pass out, where whether you're just not just sitting there squeezing and wasting your strength. So we try to do a lot of situational drills. When we're doing jujitsu, we try to kind of mimic fighting as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean that's the most applicable way to train, If you could learn things all day long, but if you don't apply it and you don't put yourself in situations that you might be in a real fight, then yeah, all that fancy stuff it doesn't really help you out, when you're in there in the actual cage getting punched in the face. You're like, oh yeah, I don't remember that spinning back kick anymore. I'm kind of more worried about not getting punched in the face at this point.
Yeah, because everybody has a game plan. Everybody has a game plan, and then they get in there, and then if it doesn't work, then what? You got to
Right.
put yourself in them situations on what am I going to do next if this doesn't work. So we try to do that a lot here, but sometimes it doesn't go our way. So when that happens, we try to get back to it and try to make it work to where we can at least try to figure out what I did wrong that fight so it doesn't happen again. Like
Definitely.
when Edgar got me with that Dagestanian handcuff, man, I did not know how to get out of that. I was freaking out. I was like, what in the world is this? And then Patrick uses it his next fight for his title fight, and I'm like, damn, dude, that works. So it's money. That's a
Yeah.
money move for sure.
Yeah, it is. It's cool to see that kind of happening in amateur MMA. Never would have thought I'd see that in an amateur fight, but it's happening more and more.
Yeah.
So, that's
And I
awesome.
feel like a lot of these guys, like the higher level amateurs, a lot of them guys, man, they look like pros out there. They'll
They
start
do.
throwing and then defending. And I'm like, whoa, dude, I thought he was going to get tapped out. And then all of a sudden is out and back up on their feet and they're striking. So I give props to a lot of them guys that are, got really good records and they're just in there grinding the whole time. It's just amazing what some of them can do, at an amateur level.
Oh, yeah. It's evolved so much. The whole sport in general, amateur, pro, UFC, it's all evolving at the same time, which is so cool. I'm excited about it.
So yeah, I'm excited to what the future holds. Hopefully, it's got a bright future ahead of me. Because like I said, I don't have many fights left in me, but I do want to get a lot more in, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But if it was up to me, I'd fight until I couldn't fight anymore. But I got to look out for myself and my kids mostly because I got to think ahead. What am I gonna do when I'm 50 something years old and I'm limping around because I fought for so long? So uh, definitely got to be smart about it. And
Yeah.
that's a lot of things that coach tries to teach us is being smart, having a game plan versus just going in there and swinging all wild and crazy.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think it's good to have that mentality. I think it's better to have a fighter that's like that and then kind of help them guide them in the right direction rather than have somebody who doesn't even want to fight. They want the result, but they don't want to do it. So somebody like you who you're like, yeah, I'll fight every weekend. And then your coach is like, well, hold on. Maybe not every weekend. But
You
that's
know?
good that you have that drive. That's good. I think that's a good thing. You can't really teach that. So,
Yeah, so I'm kind of glad I have him too there, so he could be like, no, dude, hold up, don't do it, because a lot of times he he'd be like, yeah, go ahead and do it. And then he'll sit there back and think about it. And be like, well, hold on, man. Who is it? What weight, first of all, is what he asked me all the time. What weight? I'm like, all right, man. So I try to keep it. He don't let me go up past 135 anymore. So that's
that's
a
good.
good thing, because it's 45 and 55, man, them guys are way big. Like Chance Beck,
Yeah.
the just fought. He's
Oh, yeah.
huge. He is huge. He fought at 145 this past weekend, and I don't even know how
Yeah.
he made weight. Like I'm like, how? He's literally like 6 foot something. I'm like, how, dude? It makes no sense. So yeah, definitely not fighting at 145 anymore. And really don't want to fight at 135 anymore. But if it
Yeah, because
happens,
you
it
got
happens.
guys like Logan who look like a freaking monster.
I know. And I told Pat like 50 different times. I'm like, he's huge, dude. There is no way he's not cutting from 160, 165 to make 135. Like, there's no way. I was like, I walk around 135. I was like, how does that even make sense to fight him? He's like, it makes plenty of sense. I was like, no, it does not, dude. Maybe for you to fight him, but
Yeah.
he was actually supposed to be one of my fights in December, but I ended up getting hurt, so I couldn't fight him either. So I had to
Right.
end up canceling the September fight and the December fight when I got hurt with my ACL, which it was a real bummer. And it upset me, but I'm back to training. I've been back at it, since December. I really shouldn't have came back, but hopefully everything stays solid. I had a really good surgeon. He did Kurt Warner's knee uh,
Oh, wow.
back when they had the Rams here in town, and he's done a lot of professional athletes, baseball players and all that, knees and all that. So I I got faith in my surgeon that he got me a good leg going. So last
Well,
time
that's
he
good.
looked at me, he's like, what have you been doing? I kind of just came that look and I'm like, man, I kind of been doing jujitsu and fighting. He's like, you're not supposed to be doing that yet. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but I take it easy. He's like, one false move and you could re-tear it. And I'm like, man. So I really try to train smart when I'm here,
Yeah.
at the gym. Uh, I've had to adjust my stance, because of the fact that when people are throwing kicks, I don't want my leg to get kicked. So I've adjusted my stance. I've learned how to fight both styles, and if I gotta go southpaw, I can go southpaw now instead of just staying orthodox and all that. So
Oh, that's good. That makes a big difference for sure.
it helps if I could get it better doing both stances, then I'll feel a lot more accomplished because you get one leg that goes out, you try to switch stances and trying to kind of fake the pain to where it's not
Right?
really looking like it hurts, but it really hurts.
Yeah. I feel you. Yeah, for sure. Well, I know you probably are exhausted, so I don't want to keep you too long, but I appreciate you coming on, man. It's been great talking to you.
Yeah, I appreciate your time. And thank you for having me. Like I said, I
Of
want to
course.
thank everyone here at the gym. They've been amazing. Can't wait to see everybody compete. On May 10th. That's fighting for us. And like I said, I want to thank my wife and my kids for holding everything down at home while I come to train. And uh, most of all, thank them and. Hopefully, I keep my camp going because my wife is having surgery uh, next Tuesday. She's getting her thyroid out, and she's getting her cut open, her rib cage and chest like opened up. So she's
Ugh,
out for a while. So
that
it's
sounds rough.
it's gonna be tough to train, but
Yeah,
we got a game plan to where I could keep try to stay on top of training, do it every day, and then get back to it on May 4th, and hopefully everything works out. And I don't know. Hopefully a couple more fights, and I go pro. We'll see. I don't know. I do want to do it, but I feel like I got to even that record out.
sure. Yeah, well, I wish you the best of luck, man. I hope it all works out. I hope that training camp goes well. And I'm excited. I'm excited for you to get back in there. I mean, it's been, what, like, seems like it's been almost a year now. Not even, well, probably not that long. Um,
I don't even want to tell you what
feels like it.
I don't even want to tell you what the doctor said. He was talking about like 2025 to fight again. I'm like,
Oh
dude, you're
my
crazy. 2025, no. So yeah, I see him in April, and we'll see what he says then. But he was
Yeah,
pretty happy with my results this last time I went. So I was like, I'm gonna keep training, keep grinding, and hopefully everything works out.
good. Well, I'll send some positive vibes your way, and hopefully it all goes smooth, and we can see you in there on May 4th. And Pat too. You know, I hope his fight goes well. Also, he's fighting for a title, or I guess another title.
Yeah, he's
That's awesome.
for the title. I'm excited for him. It's good promotion. They treat us really good. So I'm excited to see him fight there. Uh, it's definitely a great time going down there every single time. Scott Arnold, he feeds us after weigh-ins, and then we wake up the next morning, we eat breakfast, and he's down there eating breakfast with us, talking to fighters, making sure everybody's okay. So it's really good promotion, to fight for. They they like to check up on their fighters, make sure everybody's okay the next day as well. So uh, I'm happy to be back down there with them, and hopefully be back here in St. Louis too. So we'll see what.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I'm excited for you, man. It's been great talking to you. I'm sure we'll talk again soon, but thanks for coming on, and I hope you have a great night.
Yeah, appreciate you, and hope you have a great night too as well.
Thank you. I'll talk to you soon. See
Uh,
ya.
I'll go.